His cheap and cheerful line of clothing, part of the very fabric of Canada.
Forest scenes, fox print, mountain scenes, and really kind of wrapping ourselves in the Canadian flag for this collection.
Now, after winning over Canadian consumers, Joe Fresh is opening 120 new stores around the globe. Yep, it's been a good year, all right, for Joe Fresh and his parent company, Loblaw. You might even be forgiven for forgetting they were tied to the worst industrial accident in a generation, and it happened just 1 year ago. April 24th, 2013 in Dhaka, Bangladesh. The 8-story Rana Plaza collapsed, killing 1,135 men, women, and children. Another 2,500 were injured. For days, rescuers, some using their bare hands, tried to dig survivors out of the rubble. The world watched in horror, wondering how a tragedy like this could happen and who was to blame. And there in the rubble of so many lost lives, Joe Fresh jeans. There was blood on the brand. Last summer, the Fifth Estate went to learn more about the clothes made for Canadian companies like Joe Fresh, Walmart Canada, and the Hudson's Bay Company. Clothes made in Bangladesh. This is the wild, wild west of the global garment industry. Every day, some 4 million people file into thousands of factories across the country. For some, working conditions are decent, but it didn't take long to find conditions that were appalling. These workers in a jute factory, the air thick with dust from a toxic dye, yet no masks, no ventilation. Down the road, using a hidden camera, we found children working in a factory. We're told children are hired and paid $1 a day. The minimum wage at the time, $38 a month, the lowest in the world. With us was a former fashion designer who once worked for Walmart Canada. Disenchanted by what he felt was disregard for factory workers, he quit after the Rana Plaza collapse.
I had to find out for myself. Is this what my industry has been doing? Are we doing this on purpose? Are we sending people to factories knowing that there is a huge danger?
Sujit Senik wanted to meet the people who made the clothes he designed for Walmart. We found them, though they wanted their faces hidden, fearing they'd get fired for talking to us.
I want to know, who are you making garments for now inside the factory?
Canada.
They described their dangerous working conditions. Dying in their factories, they told us, was a daily fear.
I want to know if you recognize this shirt, if any of you recognize having made this shirt over the past few months. Is this something that you made in the factory?
We showed them one of Sujit's designs.
I made it when I used to work on the 5th floor.
I designed this garment. I drew this garment. I'm grateful to meet you. I wanted to meet you. It's nice to finally be able to see you and tell you that I think that you should have a better life.
We met another worker with an incredible story of survival. Arudi was working on the 6th floor of Rana Plaza when it collapsed, making shorts for Joe Fresh.
Do you recognize these shorts?
Yeah. These pants were there.
She was just 15, a kid making kids' clothes for Canadians. Arudi was trapped in the rubble for 3 days, pinned under 2 dead bodies. She lost her leg. Her mother also made clothes for Joe Fresh. She was killed in the collapse.
How do you feel when you look at those pants?
I feel sad. If I didn't work in that factory, this would not have happened. I feel very bad seeing these pants.
This has been quite a tragic event.
Joe Mimran and Galen Weston, the chairman of Loblaw, seemed stunned to learn they were inextricably linked to the disaster and the catastrophic loss of life.
I'm troubled that despite a clear commitment to the highest standards of ethical sourcing, our company can still be part of such an unspeakable tragedy.
Loblaw promised to be a force for good in Bangladesh. So, has anything really changed? Loblaw wouldn't speak to us on camera. Here's what we've been told they've done in Bangladesh since the collapse of Rana Plaza.
Loblaw says it doesn't make its production volumes public, but the company did tell us their orders from Bangladesh are about the same as they were before the collapse. The company uses dozens of garment factories in the country. Since the collapse, it's made the decision to hire one employee who will be based in Bangladesh to oversee the company's multi-million-dollar business.
As for compensation for workers who were making Joe Fresh clothes, Loblaw paid them 3 months' wages. That's about $150 per worker. The company contributed $1 million to groups working to help survivors. And we're told recently donated $3 million to a trust fund for injured workers. Loblaw is also the only Canadian company to sign an international accord that ensures fire safety and structural inspections will be done on all the factories they use. Bob Jeffcott is a labor rights activist. He says Loblaw has made short-term fixes, but the business model is still all about making cut-rate clothing.
Well, I think what they have done that's positive is we're one of the early companies to sign the accord. Secondly, they were at the table early on for the negotiation of this trust fund, so they participated from the beginning on that. Whether this has fundamentally changed how they do business or not is yet to be seen.
That's the big question.
And that is the big question.
Our big question? How is Arudi doing 6 months since we first met her? So we went back to find her. Her family did receive compensation from the Bangladeshi government. It made a grim calculation for victims. For a lost life, the government paid out around $3,000. For a lost limb, people like Arudi were paid between $14,000 and $21,000. But money can't erase what happened to her. She is haunted by a recurring nightmare.
In my dreams, I see the building collapsing, and I'm lying in the rubble.
Arudi tried to rebuild her life by going back to school. It didn't last. Since her mother's death, she's taken on her role, a substitute mom at the age of 16.
It's now my responsibility to support my little brothers and sisters. I don't even want to live anymore, but I have to stay strong because of them. Of no one else besides them.
Despite the collapse, her family members are still garment workers. They have to move on. But Arudi can't. She still feels trapped.
Why did they put us in that building? If they hadn't, many more people would be alive today.
If the world paused for Bangladesh a year ago, it seems most Canadian consumers have also moved on. Former fashion designer Sujit Senik has been speaking out about how to improve conditions for workers in Bangladesh. He feels few are listening.
Price seems to be more important to our society as Canadians, is more important than the welfare of other people that you can't see. But that's the essential. How do you value people in the third world? What is the value of a life? Right, that is what we're asking. And right now, the value is super low. Super low. Right?
Like the price of a t-shirt.
Yeah. Or less. Or less.
But it's not so easy to move on for the people whose lives were shattered by the collapse of Rana Plaza. Today, the site is fenced off. This sign sending those looking for help elsewhere. Anywhere but here.